गंगे च यमुने चैव गोदावरी सरस्वती कावेरी नर्मदे सिंधु जलस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु। जल ईश्वर स्वरूप है, सौम्य, शालीन, जीवनदायक। प्रकृति का दिया ये जल रूपी वरदान पृथ्वीवासियों के लिए सिर्फ एक विरासत नहीं, बल्कि एक जिम्मेदारी है, जिसे आने वाली पीढ़ी के लिए संभालना आवश्यक है। और इस उद्देश्य की ओर पूरी निष्ठा से कार्य कर रहा है राष्ट्रीय जल मिशन, जल शक्ति मंत्रालय, भारत सरकार।
खेती के उपयोग में आने वाले पानी का अधिकतम उपयोग हो, इस दृष्टिकोण से मंत्रालय माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के मार्गदर्शन में काम कर रहा है और हमने नेशनल वाटर मिशन में 20% तक पानी के उपयोग में कमी लाने का लक्ष्य रखा है। सतह पर जो जल उपलब्ध है उसका उचित प्रबंधन, भूगर्भ के जो हमारे स्रोत हैं उनका ठीक से उपभोग हो, जो पानी हम अलग अलग क्षेत्र में उपयोग में लेते हैं उसका विवेकपूर्ण उपयोग हो, और उसके साथ साथ में जो पानी उपयोग के बाद में निकलता है उसका ठीक से ट्रीटमेंट हो, तो हम जल सुरक्षित देश को बना सकते हैं।
जलवायु परिवर्तन का विशेष ध्यान रखते हुए नेशनल एक्शन प्लान ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज के तहत नेशनल वाटर मिशन की स्थापना की गई, ताकि जल संरक्षण को बढ़ावा मिले, जल की बर्बादी को कम किया जा सके और राज्यों के भीतर एवं राज्यों के बीच जल का अधिक समान रूप से वितरण सुनिश्चित किया जा सके।
Very good afternoon, everyone, and warm welcome to 41st Water Talk, being organized by National Water Mission and is supported by Water Digest. I'm Anupma, the director and editor of Water Digest, and I take pride to be a part of this wonderful initiative of Ministry of Jal Shakti. So I'm happy to share that Water Talk, which started in May 2020, has become one of the most popular events of the Ministry of Jal Shakti, and we are seeing participation from across the globe. And today's Water Talk is a special one, as I'm fortunate to welcome Ms. Archana Verma, IAS, Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission, who has taken up the charge on 9th of September 2022. I'm glad, welcome ma'am, and we are honored to have you, and we look forward to your vision as far as even this Water Talk series is concerned. And I'm also very fortunate to welcome our esteemed speaker today, Dr. Lior Asaf, Water Attaché from Embassy of Israel. And I'm happy to share that he'll be talking about opportunities and challenges of India water system and an Israeli perspective. So I'm sure it will be an interesting talk today. And before we invite the speaker to talk about the success studies of Israel and how the work and the collaboration is happening as far as India and Israel water partnership is concerned, I now request Archana Verma ma'am to kindly propose the welcome address and share your vision for the Water Talk series and overall for National Water Mission. Over to you, Archana. I'm requesting you to kindly unmute yourself.
A very good afternoon, to all of you. Thank you, Anupama, for the wonderful introduction. I am Archana Verma, and I have just joined on 9th September as the Mission Director of the National Water Mission. And I take this opportunity to extend a very, very warm welcome to our speaker, Dr. Lior Asaf, Water Attaché of the Israeli Embassy, New Delhi. Welcome, Doctor. Water, as you all know, is considered an elixir of life, and the greatest civilizations have been around the rivers. Four of our greatest civilization, like the Mesopotamian, Indus Valley, Egyptian civilization, Chinese, have all been around rivers like Tigris, Euphrates, Indus, Nile, Yellow and Blue Sea in China. So, and it is water which has given human beings the opportunity to grow into Homo sapiens. if it was not for water, we may still be in the pre-Homo sapiens stage. But today, as you all know, that water has become, water about which we did not bother in the past has become such a scarce commodity. It has led to so many, water conflicts around the world, to which the attaché may not be completely unaware of. And now, before I, request you to start your deliberation, I would just like to give you some statistics about India so that you may already be knowing, but you can put it in perspective. That India, as such, is 18% of the world's population, but smaller than that, it has only 4% of the world's water, and smaller than that, it has only around 2.4% of the land resources. And as per the data of central agencies, which we in the ministry collect, we receive around 4,000 billion cubic meter of precipitation, out of which only utilizable water resource is 1123 of the 4,000 that we receive, which includes around 690 billion cubic meter of surface water and 433 BCM of groundwater. However, as you know, as India has commenced on a very fast growth trajectory, our water demand has increased. And while it was only 710 BCM in 2010, it has increased to 850 BCM in 2025 and is expected to touch 1,180 BCM in the year 2050. So the urgency of saving water, to save life, to save the planet is, I think, is being felt by everybody. So we are expecting that in the year 2050, if we go the way we are going, our demand will far exceed our supply. And already from 2011, we have reached the water stress category of around 1700 cubic meter, and we will reach the water scarce category in 2050, which is around 1000 cubic meter, if we go the way we are going right now. So, and if I talk sector wise, then I think we can forge a fantastic partnership with Israel, because our main consumer of water is irrigation based agriculture, which consumes around 80% of our water consumption, which is followed by drinking water and industrial uses and energy thereafter. So, irrigation-based agriculture, the water use efficiency is really low. And I'm just coming back from a meeting in which they said that currently it would be around 38%. And I don't have to stress enough that climate change has played a havoc on the water availability, and it has affected our average rainy days. Despite the precipitation remaining the same, it has resulted in greater intensity of rains. Like, I have just come back from my Kada, which is Assam, and we were just not expecting so much rain in March. We got more rain in March and less in our monsoon season. So, these kind of erratic climatic variations is happening, and it led to flooding in seasons we were not expecting in Assam. And it also leads to more runoff to the sea and loss of groundwater recharge. And of course, everybody knows that because of the melting of the glaciers, the sea levels are rising, and we have a long coastal plain of around 7,516 kilometers. So, to cope with the impact of the climate change, we in 2011 established the National Water Mission, which was under the National Action Plan on Climate Change of Government of India. And the objective of the mission was conservation, minimizing of wastage, and ensuring its equitable distribution both across and within the states through integrated water resource management and development. We have basically 5 goals under the National Water Mission. If I could just very briefly state, the first is water data, which is open to the public, which is real time, which is, satellite and sensor based. And second is promotion of citizen and state action, because water is something which needs the participation of stakeholders. Third is focused attention on water vulnerable areas. And fourth is improved water use efficiency. This is where I think um, Israel can really be a great partner and help us. And fifth is promotion of basin level integrated water management. As I keep saying in all my talks, when I joined the ministry, I realized that, we are still working in silos. And I keep saying that nature hates silos. We cannot work in silos. We have to work in an integrated fashion, be it within the ministry, outside the ministry, or even with the partners, that we cannot have at least our vision has to be integrated. And I'm happy to report that we already are deliberating on in doubling of water use efficiency by 2047, as per the directions of our Honorable Prime Minister, is very passionate about water, and our secretaries across departments are sitting together and deliberating on this, so that we don't have a sectoral vision from here on. And we have a lot of programs running, like National Water Mission, Namami Gange. Then we have NRCD, which is, basically deals with river rejuvenation. We have Atal Bhujal Yojana, which deals with groundwater management. And we under the National Water Mission, we've asked the states to prepare a state action plan, which is scientific and integrated. And we've asked the districts to prepare a district water plan, which is integrated, and also geotag the water bodies. And I'm happy to report that yesterday we issued orders, and our Honorable Minister approved and issued orders for the Bureau of Water Use Efficiency. It's a new bureau which has been set up under the ministry, and which is under now the National Water Mission. And when it comes to Israel, all of us are aware of the marvelous work that you've done in water use efficiency, as you're the only country in the world which is, I think, about to achieve 100% water use efficiency. Both India and Israel have a common goal of establishing a circular water economy and a smart irrigation-based agriculture, sustainable agricultural sector. And everybody knows that Israel has transformed itself from being a water scarce nation to a self-sustainable nation in the field of water. By adopting a holistic and integrated approach, you have not cut water into sectors, and holistic approach to water consumption. And you, as of today, what I have been informed is that you recycle most of your wastewater, which is around 90%, which makes you the global leader in wastewater recycling. So we are also trying, and we have a lot to learn from you. And now I invite you, Dr. Lior Asaf, to share your experience, as I think the audience is eagerly waiting to listen to your speech. Over to you, Dr. Lior.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon for everyone. My name is Dr. Lior Asaf. I'm the water attaché in the Israeli embassy here in New Delhi. Water attaché is a new role starting only a year ago in 2021 as a commitment of the State of Israel to achieve and to promote water in relationship with the government of India on the entire water sector. I'm coming from over 20 years of worldwide experience, both in the academy and in the private sector, working as a water expert on water projects around the world. Today, I would like to speak about the Israeli model and about how Israel become self-sustained in water management, and to address some of the key issues that I think relevant for the Indian water sector. So I will start my presentation with a quick overview about the India water challenges. We will talk specifically about the issues that already been mentioned about sustainability, efficiency, and the need to supply water for a larger population with increasing demand in all sectors. If we look in India, by 2050, India will have more than 10 billion people. The world will have more than 10 billion people, and India will host probably more than 1.5 or 1.6 billion people. How India can supply the water needs for domestic agriculture, industry, energy production, economical development, and ecological system in sustainable model, it's a very big task. And Mem already mentioned, the director of mission, about what is the availability of water. And if we look at the perspective of how much water resources or freshwater resources there are in India, I think the main issue is about the management, not about the supply for itself. If we compare India to Israel, Israel is a very small country. We only use 1.2 BCM of water. So what we can learn from our experience to a more larger scope of overall. India using about more than
Dr. Leo,
yes.
Doctor, would you like to show the presentation along while speaking?
Oh yeah, sure. It's not. I
Yeah.
thought the presentation is
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
I will. Sorry, I will shift. Okay. Now it's been synced.
Yes. Yes.
So I will continue from this point. India is using more than 1,100 BCM, and from that about 2/3 is coming from surface water and about 1/3 is coming from groundwater. But if we look through the distribution, most of the water are coming to use in the agricultural sector, more than between 85 to 90%. And from, if we look in irrigation, still is the most, let's say, a part of the Indian water sector. But still, more than 80% of the irrigated land in India is done still by flood irrigation and by inefficient methods of irrigation that are consuming a lot of water. And the production associated with these methods are less good than other methods like micro irrigation that I will talk specifically later on. If we look at the sector, we can look that most of course, coming from agriculture, but the valuable water in India is coming down. If we're looking from 47 onward, we have, because of the population is increased and the water says about the same, we have less water available. And India is now using 18% of the world population, but only 4% of its water resources. But still, India using more water than United States and China together. That means that Indian water sector or Indian water consuming is the largest in the world, and the challenge of how to manage a very large system are enormous. If we include not only what is the current situation, but what's going on with the climate around the world, we'll see that the future lies for us higher challenges. That means that the water availability that was in the past is changing dramatically. And for example, this is the heat waves that we all have been seeing in a few months ago in India. And it's not only about heat wave, it's about the distribution of the rain, it's about the recharge of groundwater, it's about surface water. all the systems, natural systems, are now in a mode of change. The climate is not only that we have less rain, that the rain itself is become more in large intensity. And that means that we will have less water available in the future. For example, we see the deviation in average rainfall across India. We can look that in the last decade, we have less water in some part of India by comparing to the average, more than 10% reduction. And still rains matter for the country because nearly half of India farmers, 50%, rely slowly on rain for their water, and these farms, it's hardest by the distribution of the monsoon rain. Let's encourage to look that more than 50% of India face already high to extremely high water stress. That means that the natural availability of water in the future will be less predict. There will be less water. And that means that the states and the government and the water sector need to have adaptation to this climate change and to this more extreme and less predictable climate in the future. This implies not only for the surface water, this implies already for the groundwater. And we can see this is a map that produced by the data from the government of India by works done in 2018. And we can see that in many parts of India, groundwater level already falling dramatically. And when we have a groundwater falling over time, that means that the system is unstable, that the system is changing because there is less water coming in and more water coming out. And this is like an overdraft in the bank. If you have less money coming in and more money coming out, in the end of the day, you can be bankrupt. And the parallel to that, what we've seen in the water sector is a series of crises. When you have cities, when you have some parts that water will not be available for consumption in the real in the near future. And prediction done by government agency predict that by 2030, India will use more water than there is natural availability, and about 40% of the population will have a very high problem to access for drinking water, and there will be enormous effect on India GDP and lost because of the water crisis. So how the government is managed to these kind of scenarios? So first, I think the water sector in India is very complicated. India is a huge country made of a federation of 31 states and state territory. Many stakeholders involved in the water sector. There is definition of some of the part of urban water supply going under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Other aspects of the water sector go under the Ministry of Jal Shakti that is only being formed about 7 or 8 years ago. So there is ongoing changing, and the main issue is that the water structure of India is done in silos. That means that several parts of agricultural supply, of irrigation supply, or water supply to cities or sanitation are done separately, not under one roof. And this become a problem when you want to imply a long-term planning that taking together all the different sectors together in what we call integrated water resources management. However, I think India is taking very, very seriously the issue of water supply and sanitation. And if we can look at the governmental program, I think the current federal government of India and the states government are doing enormous, let's say, trying to supply both resources to water allocation problem. So under the Jal Shakti mission, under the Jal Shakti ministry, the Jal Jivan mission supply water for more than 96 million people in the last few years. Villages and millions of people are being, for the first time, connecting to tap water. If we look under Amrut mission, under the Namani Gange program, there is a lot of investment in sanitation, a lot of investment in the urban water sector, but still the challenges are being very important. How in the next decade, and I think the next decade for India will be a window of opportunity, will be a window of opportunity to change how the water sector is both function and which kind of model, both economical and social model and engineering model, will ensure that the water supply and sanitation program will work efficiently and sustainable manner. I want to now to shift a little bit the outlook to Israel and to tell you the story of the Israeli water sector, how this sector is developed. And of course, now people talk about in the beginning that Israel is very self-sufficient and so on. Yes, this is true, but we had our share of mistake. We had our share of challenges. Both countries were actually came to be independence following British rule in 1947-48. And in the last years, I think we step ahead. And in the last 20 years, Israel water sector changed very dramatically to become a self-sustained. And if we compare the water consumption both countries, so of course the area and population-wise, there is a factor of about 150, 170. That means that India population is 1.4 billion people, while Israel is only 9.5 million people. But if we're looking on water consumption per capita, we can have a look that actually in India, you have a lot more water, about 3.5, the factor is usable fresh water per capita. And if we look in agriculture, per capita, Indian farmers are using more than 8 times than the Israeli farmer. However, in Israel, we have a secure water supply, and you can open any tap anywhere in the country. You will have a 24/7 water supply with a very good quality. And this is not the situation in India. And for farmers, we are securing, giving the farmers the water that they need, but there is a difference in the system. First of all, let's look about what was the starting point of Israel. And if we look, and this is the air photo of the Middle East, you can see it, Egypt in the Nile River Basin, very green. And you can look at Jordan and the Sinai deserts, very yellow and dry. And you can see there are some green patch in Israel. But most of the country, you can see even from this air photo, is still a desert. Is 60% of the area is considered to be a desert. And if we're looking what is the water availability, what is the average precipitation in Israel, we can see that only limited part of the country, the north part of the country, receive between around 500 to 600 millimeter of rain. This is considered to be a very dry zone in India. Most of India receiving a lot more water than 500 millimeter. However, in Israel, we have a desert in most of our country with less than 400 millimeter, maybe comparing to the state of Rajasthan in India. Population-wise, we grow. We have a GDP that is about more than $40,000 per annum, but still we have a small country with a very big challenge of how we can supply the water for our country. And I think the starting point was in the leadership of the government of Israel in the early years. And I think one of the vision of David Ben-Gurion, that was the prime minister of Israel, the first prime minister of Israel, was that making the desert bloom, making the desert green, making the desert a place that people can live and can be walking and can be farming and can be sustained community. And the limited factor from early on was water. Actually, when the British mandate was ending in the end of the 40s, before the starting point of the States of Israel, there was a big division about what will be, how many people can inhabit the Israel. And the British come to conclusion that only 1.5 million people can live in Israel only because of water shortages. Actually, this was changed over the years. And the first things was creation of country water resources are public property. Control and design for the needs of the resident and developing in the country. All water sources, water, spring, stream, river, sewage, surface water, groundwater, are the property of the country. That means that even in your own farm, you cannot drill a well without permission of the government. The land maybe belong to you or leased by you, but the water above the ground and below the ground are the property of the country. And another factor that was a creation in the early 2000s of what we call the Water Authority of Israel, that is one table for all decision making, for all design, for all legislation, for all finance and long-term planning under one roof that connect all the different stakeholders from the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Internal, Ministry of Water Resources. And another key factor is that this board, or this Water Authority Board, is detached from the political system. So the people that actually manage the water authority are professional and not elected as a politician nomination. But if we look how it's developed, it was not so one success story from the beginning. In the early years, Israel was based on beginning in 1948 was only 600,000 people. And then by less than 5 years, population was triple for over 1.5 billion. So all the new immigration, all the people that come to Israel need more water. And this water was coming mainly from, in the beginning, from the aquifer. So in the first decade of the country, water was becoming very problematic, and many of the aquifers, specifically in the coastal region, was badly affected by overuse. So the country was needed a national water system, very similar to what you try to do now in India in what we call interlinkage project. That means connecting the north of the country where we have a surplus of water, or at least we think it was surplus of water from the Sea of Galilee, to the south part of the country where there is less water. So there was originally, the first line was in 1952, and then the second stage was in 1961. And then the third stage, the National Water Carrier System, was a major project of Israel connecting the Sea of Galilee to the south of the country. This was a very big engineering project, taking 10% of the overall energy of Israel for this project. But if you're looking at today, 50 years more later on, this system is not functioning anymore because there is no water in the north of the country. There is not enough water in the north of the country. So I will talk about how we change from what we call an interlinkage project kind of a system to some other man-made source, mainly reusing of sewage water and creation of new water source by desalination. So the first was a main water supply in 1964 of the National Water Carrier, taking the water from the Sea of Galilee all the way to the south by a series of reservoirs, by a series of very large pump, by bringing the water from minus 10 meters below sea level to more than 600 meters above sea level. So that was a very engineering large project. This system today is reserve. That means we reserve the direction of the water because there is no enough water in the Sea of Galilee. So in a way, if to take this lesson, national water system should be considered, but you have to look from long-term planning if this is sustained and if we have enough water to supply the overall country. And this is because climate change, highly reduction, and this is the available water in the Sea of Galilee. And we can see that if during the 60s and the 70s, the figure was around 500 to 600 MCM a year, million cubic meter a year. In the last 8 years, there was hardly water or mass balance in the Sea of Galilee. So that's the reason that if the country was entirely based on the national water system, on the national water carrier, this water system will not function and we cannot give the water supply for all the residents. Another aspect was the managing of the groundwater. So you can see in this map, this is a map that shows the coastal aquifer water level. In blue is about more than 10 meters above sea level. In red is less than 1 meter. And you can see that for many years, we had been mismanaged our aquifer and created by the mid-80s a very large impact, a very large crater in few places that the water level was below sea level. That's mean a very negative effect for both water quality and water quantity for this aquifer. And only after we shifted our water supply from groundwater to more other source of water, we can sustain our aquifer in a decent or more accurate level. How we done that? So in this graph, we can see how the water changing water availability or the resources developing over the years from the 50s to the 2000. And we can see that 1500 line, 15 MCM, are what we call the natural or average natural water recharge for our entire system for both surface and groundwater. This is our natural replenishment. And for many years, we've been taking more water than was the availability. And that was implied in a series of water shortages, in a series of crises, in a series that in some instances our former chief of staff of the army, General Rafael Eitan, that was in at the time the Minister of Agriculture, was calling to public taking baths in couple because there was not enough water. And this was implying for a series of water shortages. And then we come out to the conclusion that this path of we call supply side management to increase our water uses from the aquifer of the surface water is a dead end for the country. And we need to shift to another direction. And this direction was two arms. The first one is starting to reuse effluent as a water supply for agriculture. And the second, from the 2006 onward, is to supply desalination water for domestic use as a major domestic use source of water for the country. Of course, this is implying money, of course, it is implying resources, but in the down end, we didn't have a choice and we had to take this route of sustainable development. And if we can compare today how Israel water sources is divided, we can see that the future Israel will not rely on natural water. We are detached ourselves from the natural water supply. We are now depending on reuse of wastewater and desalination. And any increase in the water demand in the future will be addressed by allocation of water from desalination and from reuse of wastewater. Natural water will still be a part of the system, but it's going to be below the natural recharge in order to ensure that the water supply will be in a sustainable manner. And part of it is including paying the full price of water. In Israel, in all sectors, we are paying the full price, not only of operation and maintenance, but actual price. That means that in the domestic use, we're paying something like $2, another 150, 160 rupee per kiloliter. That's a lot of money that goes into this sector, but this money is based on a circular economy model that's going back to this the water sector. Another thing is public participation. From early age, from kindergarten, from school, Israeli public is aware that there is a water shortages and we need to save water. This was done by public campaign, this is done on television and so on. And we can see in this slide how water consumption was actually reducing by intensive of water campaign. I think now it's a little bit changed because 10 years later, we are now feeling more, I think, secure about water supply. But still the awareness exists that water is a precious commodity, need to be promoted, need to be maintained, and not need to be wasted in any of the sector. And we can see now that if we look at the entire water sector of Israel, that this total is about, let's say, 2,300 MCM. It's including non-revenue water of less than 10%. In some of the city, it's even less than 5%. That means that efficiency, both in the agricultural sector and the industrial sector and the domestic sector, is very, very high. We're not wasting our water. And nowadays, about 55% of our water system, of our water coming from man-made source, both recycle, Berkish, and desalination of water. So what was the policy? The policy was that wastewater use is called for a national policy for gradual replacement of freshwater allocation for agriculture by reclaimed effluent. And this was done by few things. First of all, water technology, then a very important regulation and standardization of the water system, and coming into national water supply of water system that allocate the water, the treated effluent to the end farmer. Creation of this system is not done by a chance. It's done by systematical approach of design and long-term planning and building the ability to supply the farmer with this water. Another part of it was connecting to the desalination, because desalination ensure that the water will be, the starting point of the water will be with low salinity. We now produce more than 750 MCM per year. That's about 80% of our water allocation for the domestic use is been by desalination. Price-wise, it's reducing. So I know in India it's different. And I know in India, not all the cities are along the coastline. But still in many places, desalination can become a part of the solution. And another very important that when you start with desalination, the water quality, the salinity is very low. And when you add it by the domestic and the effluent, you will add about 100 milligrams of chloride to your system. That means that if you're starting from low salinity water, you will have low salinity wastewater. And therefore it can be used for agriculture because salinity is not changing by biological and treatment that using for wastewater. So desalination can be a good solution. It can supply, for example, this one facility supply 150 MCM per year. This is about, I would say, a quarter of the Israeli water supply for the domestic use by one desalination facility. Let's speak about national policy and about the reuse of effluent. For that, we build separate system. This system is taking the water from the cities, from the metropolis of Tel Aviv, more than 100 kilometers away to the Negev desert. This is a system that exists for over 40 years. We irrigated our land for any crop, for any use, and it was changing over time in terms of water quality. But the original design still exists. That means that we're using the aquifer as a part of the system. Soil aquifer treatment, using the aquifer both as our treatment and as our reservoir. This scheme is in charging that the water, after treated in conventional to the secondary level, water are injected to recharge to the ground surface, and by line of wells, use it later on. We have recovery wells that take this water after about 6 to 7 months in the subsurface and supply it to the farmer. So I think this kind of system can be adapted as well in India. Maybe we don't need to go for 100-kilometer infrastructure. Maybe the solution, the reception of the wastewater could be around the city in a radius of 20 kilometers or less. That means that you need to invest less money in creating this infrastructure. The second point is that you need to look at regional perspective. India is too big for one system. States are the leaders in the water solution, and they are the ones that need to implement the project. So in this case, we can look in more regional perspective or states perspective of how you design. In Israel, 99% of the sewage is collected, 97% is treated, and this day, not 82, but 87% is reclaimed for reuse. So that means that most of our water are being used twice. One time in the domestic water system, and the second time in the agricultural system. National policy is calling for wastewater collection system and wastewater sludge treatment and central treatment plant. In each area, we have some are very large, like the Shafdan, that treating around 170 or 400 mld of sewage per day, while it's in some other parts, there are more smaller site solution. Wastewater can be a significant risk to public health. That was a question mark that we start for. So therefore, Israeli made a very strict standard of more than 36 parameters. And these standards is requiring by tertiary treatment before we supply the water for agriculture. That means that a lot of money was invested in upgrading some of the old STP to the new technique, or adding another model for a new to achieve higher standards, and this to ensure that the public in the irrigation system will get a good water quality that allow us to allocate the water for any kind of vegetable, crop, and so on. But there is one big difference. We are not using flood irrigation anywhere in Israel, only drip and micro irrigation. That means there is not straight contact between the water to the vegetable. Water go directly to the root zone, and therefore allow us to use water for any kind of crop. The way to achieve the new standard was tertiary treatment for organic, disinfection of pathogen in the water treatment facilities, metal, heavy metal, have to be treated in the source. So there is standard for each factory. If they want to put the wastewater into the system, they have to use a pre-treatment before that they allocate the water to the STP. Salt removal using by some of this desalination as a source of water, and boron that is not difficult to human being, but have a very, let's say, negative effect on agricultural production, was removed in the desalination facilities because this was the most economical way. But we look at a holistic approach, how we can ensure that any of the water quality will be the best cost-effective manner in order to promote this reuse of wastewater. So the parameter, I'm not going to go into detail, but there was a two standard. One is for irrigation, another one is released to the stream. The reason is that in some, for example, phosphorus and nitrogen, you wanted to keep them to reduce the use of filterizers later on. So we allow higher standards for irrigation, or higher, let's say, standards of 10 and 5 milligram per liter by comparing to 1 and 1.5 when we talk about releasing to the stream. Similarity was for irrigation for heavy metals and so on. We give the exact number for each kind of solution. If it's go to the stream, have different standard, sometimes stricter, sometimes less higher standard, and if it go to irrigation. Biological treatment and other membrane bioreactor and multi-stage biological system are common here in India. And I was visiting in a few wastewater facilities here in India. I don't think there is a problem with the wastewater technique here. And there are very good company that know how to build and to operate STP here in India. The question lies how you can take it to a national, to a states and regional perspective, and this is something that needs to be addressed. Another issue is that you look in the industrial sector and to have promote a very strict regulation and oversight. And what you can see in this graph that Israel succeed in reducing the total loads of nitrogens and phosphorus and other contamination in the sewage from the industrial sources, and this imply what higher quality of wastewater. So success factor in this system was, first of all, integrated water authorities that covering all the different sectors, all the framework of financial, of engineering, and allocation of water. So this, say, centralized integrated water authority succeed to promote the reuse of wastewater and desalination as an approach for water management. Subsidy for construction of wastewater treatment. There need to be a subsidy, there need to be some supporting of the government in order to make this transition, in order to make sure that both the farmer and the local municipality have the ability to carry on this transformation. A transparent regulation. Between 2010 and 2015, Israel specified effluent quality standard and sewage treatment rules for better public health. Information and prices are public accessible. That means there is now a regulation that the price for wastewater or treated wastewater is about 2/3 of the price of fresh water. So the farmers have an economical initiative to use this water. In some parts of Israel, in the Negev, for example, in the Western Negev, there is no alternative. The farmer only can use the shafdan or the treated wastewater, and they cannot have a source of water, a fresh water source. So this is done by the government. There is enforced regulation, of course, by the Ministry of Environment, by the Water Authority, to monthly reported, to check, to verify that the using is according to the regulation. And the last part is the technological innovation. The private sector have an open door and have the ability to come forward and suggest new technology. And there is mechanisms that ensure that the local ULB or local water bodies can have some funds to introduce new technology in order to have better performance. So I tell you in the last half an hour a very successful, nice story about how Israel moved from self-sufficient to self-sufficient in the water sector, and how we transformed the water sector and done it very efficiently over 20 years period. Are these solutions are suitable for India? Is India or the government of India can make this transition to more sustainable approach? So first of all, I would like to say that the solution should be custom-made. India have different kind of structure, different kind of water government, different kind of social level, and different mechanism for pricing water. But in the heart of it, sustainable management of water resources, efficiency, and reuse of water should be part of this roadmap. And when you build a new STP in India, this STP should have a reuse scheme, should have a planning. Otherwise, you will build the STP. And today, India is treating only third of the water, wastewater, and part on only few percent are reused. So this next decade, when India will upgrade the water sector and upgrade the infrastructure and invest billions of dollars in new facility, this window of opportunity should be made that India takes the right steps in order to build this sustainability model. And efficiency is in the heart of it. And this is, for example, efficiency in water distribution system. So this is typical system in India. You have a dam, you have a reservoir, and now this reservoir can be filled with fresh water, or it can filled with reuse of wastewater. Still, what is count is what is going downstream for that system. And if you're going from this part downstream with only flood, let's say system, flood irrigation with less than 40% efficiency, this is a very limited solution. If you ensure that this surface water solution or reuse of wastewater solution, including the last mile conductivity, including micro irrigation solution, including command and management of energy and efficient system, you can go up to 90% efficiency. That means that you can either double the area under irrigation for each one of these systems, or you can reduce your water consumption by 50%. And I think this is a major part of it. So when you go to build a new system, either by surface water or either by reuse of wastewater, you should include the last mile conductivity and complete solution to the farmers. Benefit of drip irrigation could be not only water saving of up to 50-60%, it's about labor saving, energy saving, more outcome for the farmers that of better yield and better quality product. And that's ensure the issue of double the farmer income. I think when you design the new system, it have to be including that the output of the system should ensure double the farmer input, or not necessarily the lowest price for the overall water system. And I think this is still, in many of the tender, it's still in the heart of it. So what is the way forward? Creation of water source at farmer level by connecting STP to the farmers. I think this is a win-win situation, because if the public and the farmer community will be built along the city with ensure that you have a safe water year round, you can reach to double the farmer income, because you eliminating the uncertainty, generating a stable non-water availability at the farmer level, and then using smarter agriculture and irrigation practices to ensure that the increase of the output of the farmers. If you look at India today, very limited reuse of water. I think it's less than 5%. This is from Gujarat, but in many other states. And when you're talking about reuse, you don't still have the full-scale model. And the model should be developed not for Israel's sake, but for India's sake. And it has to be developed for the local condition. It's not be the copy-paste of the Israeli model. It has to take sure that the farmer will get the water and how the farmer will get the water and how they will use it for a long term by capacity building. It's something that have to be in the heart of this planning. So let's look, for example, in areas that I was visiting a few months before in Rajasthan, in Jodhpur. In Jodhpur, it's a city of about 1.5 million people. Right now, there is a STP, it's called Savales, in the Savales River. And you can see all these green patches. All these green patches are farmers that irrigate water from this river. But this river is not clean, and it's not with low salinity. It's actually a very high salinity. So this kind of a reuse scheme that based on water, that treated in the STP, let's say that sometimes need to upgrade, but let's say that the STP is function. What's happening to the water? This water are released back to the environment with no reuse scheme. And then the farmer downstream taking this water irrigated by flood irrigation only in the plots that are adjacent to the river. This is not a correct approach. You need to connect directly the water system and the STP to the farmers. And for example, in this area, if you take the STP and connect it to this area that is very dry now, you can have farmers that have now year-round agriculture based on the reuse of effluent. But this effluent need to be taken directly from the STP to the farmer field. And one more important factor, you need to build an operational reservoir, a seasonal reservoir, not for 1 day, not for 3 days, for 6 to 8 months. That means that you need to create a reservoir like we did in Israel with a capacity of 6-10 million MCM. This is a large facility. You need to find the place. You need to find a regional perspective, a full design of the area in order to assure that this kind of reuse scheme can be taken up forward. And the same goal for this is another city that now we want, together with Amrut mission, to take it as a model, to build a system of reuse in Ahmedabad and to use maybe up to 80% of the water in the around area around the Ahmedabad. There is no problem with the STP. Maybe some of the STP need to be upgraded, and there is a need to have a regulation that tell exactly which kind of parameter have to be met. And this could be achieved, I think, quite easily by the current technology that already employed in India. But what is needed is to build the infrastructure, the regional infrastructure, by a master plan, by a detailed design that ensures that the water will be connected from the STP to the last mile to the farmer fields. And how the system will be operated from economical and from social, this have to be met. It's not only engineering solution. We need to think on all the aspects of how this system will work, who will pay for them, who will pay for operation and maintenance, and what should be the long-term perspective of this system. And I think one of the important part is that when you create a year-round agriculture that is not depending already on the monsoon rain or the irrigation canal systems that operate only few months throughout the year, you can ensure that the farmer has the opportunity to create a sustainable and profitable agriculture. However, this transition from flood irrigation to advanced agriculture, to advanced irrigation method, to the issue of reuse of wastewater need to be supported by the government for a few years. Otherwise, it's going to be falling apart after the EPC part. And I think area of all India, it's not only in Ahmedabad or in Rajasthan, I think in every cities of India, but you should start from the cities that suffers from water supply shortages. You can build this kind of system. And even in cities or in places, for example, in Assam, when I visited a few months back, there is a 6,000, 7,000 millimeter of rain, 7 meter of rain. There is no shortage of natural water supply. However, in the post-monsoon season, because there is no augmentation, because there is no seasonal storage, there is less water available for agriculture. And farmers don't have water during, let's say, April and May and June, because there is no water there in the stream. So when you build this system, you should took, first of all, long-term planning. Second, create the valuable water storage, a seasonal water storage that ensure that the farmer have a year-round agriculture based on this water. So what's the way forward? I think Israel technology and know-how can be transferred to the private sector, to the government, to the farmer by a variety of tools. So what tools is that we have now a project with the government of UP, creating water management and supply for agriculture in 25 villages in Jhansi region. And this is an example how you can make a holistic approach and a holistic integrated design for an area. And the bottom line for the first stage of this work is that yes, there is enough water, even in Bundelkhand region that's considered to be a dry region, in order to transform the area for year-round agriculture if we use advanced irrigation, recharge of groundwater, and integrated water supply scheme. The second part of it is that we are now looking to establish a new centers, two centers of water technology, one in Noida, in the north part of India, near Delhi, and one in Chennai in South India. And these centers will be the window for explore the knowledge of Israel industrial firm, as well to have a capacity building program to support the government of India in all the different levels, from the federal states agency to the states agency in all the sectors. And I think what is important, it's not only about policy. It's not only about taking and I was having the chance to bring in the last year 3 delegations from India to Israel, and we intend to have another delegation in December. But in this delegation, we only bring about 25 people each time. I think what is needed is to have on the ground large-scale projects that have the full availability of the system. This, for example, if we create a full-scale project, including not 100 acre, but 5,000 acre in each hectare in each project, allow 10 to 15,000 farmers to transform from regular canal-based irrigation to advanced reuse of wastewater and year-round agriculture, creation of a new master plan for an area, and then allowing the farmer to benefit from this project, I think this would be a model that later on can be copy-paste. Because what is needed is not only a technical solution, an engineering solution, but to create the mechanism, the social mechanism, the interlinkage between the different agencies in India in order to promote this kind of solution. And this only can be done here in India by connecting together the different stakeholders here in India. And last and not least, I would want to talk a little bit about the payment mechanism and the financial mechanism. And this is very important. Many of the projects in India, in the water sector, are still ongoing on what we call an EPC mode. In an EPC mode, project financed by the project owner, it's private player that is responsible for the EPC. There is low risk for the private sector, but the government usually doing it for a very simple project like building an STP or building a new water supply scheme. But this comes as a bill of quantity. This is good for a very simple task, but when you want to create a new system, integrated system, I think another approach is needed, and I think already been done here, what we call the hybrid annuity mode, the HAM model or the hybrid model of finance, that include not only the EPC part, but the maintenance and the operational under one roof. And I think if this mode could be extended to creation of project like reuse of wastewater or integrated water supply system, this could be the way forward. Because when you have one contractor that in charge not only for the EPC, the design, and the new facility, but is in charge of operation for 10 or 15 years contract with very high insurance by the government, then you have the ability to build all the system and to support them for a few years in order that this transition from, let's say, a very low mode of infrastructure to a large scale integrated approach that create by the private sector for a long term. And I think in this kind that you have construction payment, O&M payment, and then the way forward for supply and support the farmer by agronomical design, by introducing and ensure that there is a technical stuff on the ground so the system can be maintained. This transition is very important. If we fail in this transition, there's not going to be a support by the government, there's not going to be support by the farmer. We need to create a success story. And if the success story is being created, then later on this mode can be extended for any states, for anywhere in India. And I think that this is a high priority for the government to ensure that the model could be duplicated later on. So I just want to sum up that in each project, we always have to look on three aspects, like in triangle. First of all, there is a project itself. Of course, it needs to give a good technology, a good commercial aspect, a good design, and a technology provider. But then another two parts should be ensuring finance for the project, either from the government, central government, federal government, or both from the states. And the last and not least is the capacity building, social and human resources. If we don't insist to have a specific chapter and specific resources allocated for the capacity building and for the transition of the farmers or water utility for a new technology, for a new management, for a new way of design and implement project, it's going to be failed. And that's it's highly important that the government should put the emphasis of creating these kind of models that ensure that the benefits in the end consumer, either in the private sector, in the urban sector, or the farmer sector, should have the ability to be supported for long terms. And I think we have now a few initiatives that Israel is planning, not only in the Center of Excellence. We're now working very closely for the Namami Ganga mission to a new online monitoring system for the entire operation. There is another work with the states of Haryana, for example, to create a new master plan that include all the different sectors. A similar project was done with Mekorot, MWC, with the states of Punjab. And I think this perspective of regional approach and state approach together with a national policy is the way forward. And I think Israel will be supporting this initiative, and we're looking to have this kind of centers that promote both capacity building and training, the implementation of the Israeli water technology showcase, and of course, pilot projects that will be on the ground. And last and not least is the academic operation. I think we need to move ahead from only a short-term just project to tender approach to a more systematical, long-term planning and long-term project and cooperation between Israel and India, and therefore to allow ourselves to support India in the next decade in this transition period when India will face the major challenges that we talk about them in the first part of my lecture. So in this regard, I would like to thank all of you for taking the time to this presentation. And I'm looking forward to be supported and to be effectively working with all the agencies in India in order to extend the cooperation in the water sector and the collaboration between India and Israel. Thank you very much, and looking forward.
Thank you, Dr. Lior, and thank you for the wonderful presentation. And there are a couple of queries also which are lined up. So, Arsha ma'am, if you allow us, we would like to go ahead and take a few queries and have a small question answer session.
Yes, of course.
If your time permits, maybe two quick questions. Arsha ji?
Please go ahead.
All right, all right. So most of you, I'm happy to see that, most of you are familiar with the question answer session pattern. In case somebody is new, you have to just raise your hand and my team will unmute you. You can ask your query and speak to the expert. Please raise your hand.
I request Mr. A.K. Agrawal, you may please ask your query. I request Mr. Devashish Day, you may please ask your query.
Yeah, Mr. Day, you can please speak.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Dr. Leo, sir, I just wanted to ask you that how much water of chemical poisoned water, that is all the chemical discharges which are going into the local reservoir and pondage, the amount of poisoning which is happening, how much water can be salvaged with the help of an existing bioculture method, and in what time frame can we actually do it in urban areas, sir? And also along with it, sir, now that there have been severe rains over here, so much of the water has also got it's got stale and it's unworthy of use. So can something in an acute and aggravated situation, can something be done with the help of this technology called bioculture, sir? I've finished.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure specifically for this specific technology that you refer to, but I would just want to address 2 points that you mentioned. First, about the issue of water quality and taking out of the industrial pollution or other source of mitigation for this. I think this is very important to ensure that there will be no water pollution or surface water resources pollution from a man-made source like industrial facility. For this, you need a very strict regulation, and I actually think that reuse of wastewater from, let's say, industrial facility is not the way forward for agriculture or for other sources, but should be more about recycling the water in industrial facility. The second point that you mentioned regarding the use of, let's say, flood water could be done in two major points. One is to ensure that there is a scheme for recharge of groundwater, and I know that India built many of this type of recharge facility, and I think this is something that should be need to encourage, but it have to be in the urban area, being monitoring as well, and be part of the overall solution. The second point is that when you talk about regional perspective, some of this flood water cannot be augmented in the urban area, but have to look in solutions that are upstream from the urban centers in order to assure, because you don't have, let's say, the necessary land to ensure this solution in the centers. So that means you have to look from the upper watershed, the upper part of the watershed, and look for solution where you can recharge groundwater or you can augment it for a seasonal augmentation.
I now request Dr. Dinesh Shah. You may kindly ask your query. Can I request my team to kindly unmute Dr. Dinesh?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Audible. Please go ahead.
Dr. Asif, I want to ask you, you have a lot of experience from Israel. And are you suggesting that Indian government should think to set up the authority, integrated authority, although they have already created Jal Shakti ministry and having drinking water also within the ministry. So, because lot of things are within the ministry, like Namami Gange and National Water Mission, and then urban water is slightly in different ministry. So you are suggesting to integrate it because lot of wastewater is generated in big cities, metro cities, and there is a good potential to treat them and then reuse and maybe it is a very economical rather than to pump water from a long distance, maybe 200 kilometers, something like that.
So I think the large water sector reforms are not something that I think India need to decide for herself. I'm not suggesting to create a new water authority for India. I think the scale of India and the structure of India is very different from Israel. So therefore, I leave the, let's say, the decision how to manage water, and I think the Constitution of India is different in this regard. It's still a subject for India. My only concern is that when you look at water management, you should look at states and regional perspective. That means that when you do either master plans or design for allocation of water, it should be include the different sector. That means that when you do a master plan for water supply, it have to look both for agriculture, both for domestic use, and not separate identities. That's one thing. The other is when you look at project-wise, you need to find a way from, I would say, regulation and from administrative point of view to work together under one roof, even for this specific project, in a way to collaborate between the different stakeholders.
Okay. I now request Professor Jyoti Prakash. Jyoti Prakash. Professor Jyoti Prakash. Can we unmute Professor Prakash?
Yeah,
Yeah,
good evening.
please.
This is Professor Jyoti Prakash from IIT Bombay. Dr.
Mhm.
Asaf, a very nice presentation. I have just two quick questions. One is, see the technologies which we are adopting in sewage treatment plants or drinking water treatment plants, they were developed in small populous countries. When it comes to India, we adopted several types of contracts. but several projects are running into trouble. That is it a change in contract method is required or technology is required? That is first question. Second one is, see, our India, the space is very large. The water management which we adopt in one location may not suit the other location. So a general policy may not be suitable. So do you think there is a need for technology adaptation of local in our government policies? You can comment on this.
Okay. So, as I say in the middle of my presentation, I don't think the problem is in technology. I think there are many companies in India, as well in Israel, that know how to build, supply, and manage STP. India will build many STP in the nearest future. In the next 10 years, India will probably build more than a few hundred new STP around India. My argument is that when you do that, you need, parallel to that, use this opportunity to create a new water source for the farmers, and connect cities to the belts of farmers around the cities. This have to be a regional approach for that. It's not federal that can solve this problem. But when a local ULB or local states is building their investment plan, investing in long-term planning, it should be include that reuse should be part not just by chance for the states to come forward, but it have to include that every new STP that it build should have a reuse scheme. And the solution could be verified. There is one solution for, let's say, a 400 MLD or 100 MLD type of central water system. And there are some solutions for a small 10 to 5 MLD solution. But you can have and look and design the system from the start. So it's not only the tender should include creation of a new STP, but tender should include both creation or upgrading STP with establishing the full-scale implementation of the reuse, not just as a general policy, but as a way forward to create a network or pipeline of project later on.
So, shall we take one more query, Archana ma'am, or as you suggest? If
Just
you
one
suggest, we'll
more
go
because I have to
one
also
more.
go to another meeting.
Understood. Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's really
So one last
interesting.
query.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I'm looking forward to work closely with you and your office to promote this cooperation.
So now I understand a lot of hand raises, lot of queries I've got in the chat box. We'll take it up. I'll separately ask Leo to answer those queries, and all your queries will find their place on the National Water Mission's FAQ section. But one last question for today, maybe Dipankar ji, if my team can unmute Mr. Dipankar Gina. Mr. Dipankar. Okay. Then another one, Mr. Bharat. Oh, Dipankar, we have him here. Mr. Dipankar, can you hear us? Hello, can you hear us? Okay, anyways, one last query, Mr. Harsh. Mr. Harsh, you can speak. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Leo. I have just one question to ask. Like, we have Indo-Israeli centers of excellence in agriculture operating in almost 30 states as of now. And that is a very good decentralized model where we are operating and cooperating in agriculture. Do you think that it would be better that we have Indo-Israeli centers of excellence in water so that we can have a decentralized approach to water cooperation where the cooperation and technology is customized to the local needs? Do you think that India and Israel are moving forward in that direction?
Okay, thank you for the question. The answer is that we are now looking to create a new two centers. I think the main difference from the existing Center of Excellence in Agriculture is that they are under the Ministry of Agriculture and they are looking, let's say, very specifically to promote technology for specific crop. When we're talking about water sector, it's not only about the technology. I think the aim of the center is to create not only to promote new technology, but to give some capacity building for the states and federal agency in order to build the needed model of cooperation in India. I think the challenge here is not about technology, it's more about how we can imply and assimilate the technology into the current system in India. And I think to create these new models, this is a big challenge that is not involved only in technology or in engineering aspect, but government, structural, and finance and social, let's say, challenges. And for that, I think working together on a broad perspective is what is needed, not only just looking for a magic bullet in a specific technology. Because if this, of course, technology is part of it, but technology is only meaningful when the country and the system can be adapted. And when we talk about applying, for example, drip irrigation or advanced, let's say, valves or pressurized system, it's have to include how this system should be implied, financed, and managed in long-term vision, and not only by the engineering solution.
Thank you, Dr. Lior. And I'm sorry for rest of our participants who had so many queries. As I said, I'm sure you'll get reply to all your queries and they'll be placed on FAQ section of National Water Mission. Now moving towards the end of the program, and I now request Archana ma'am for her concluding remarks. And thank you once again, Lior, for a wonderful presentation, and thank you for sharing your insight. Over to you, Archana ma'am.
Thank you, Anupama. I think I made my concluding remarks in my opening observations.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Dr. Lior. It was actually wonderful listening to you. I am so new to the water sector that I don't know W of water. I have worked in rural development, I've worked in health, I have worked in administrative reforms, I've worked in the Vigilance Commission, I've worked in Department of Personnel and Training, and I've been a collector, but never in the water sector directly. I think when I was Guwahati Municipal Commissioner, that was the only time when, we had started this concept of having STPs way back. So today from you, I have learned so much that I now almost am feeling like an expert in water because, there's so many domain to integrated water vision. Like you talked about water security, but you also talked about water quality, water governance, including financing, and you talked about climate change and how to tackle that. And you also talked about that one size fit all policy in a country like India, where no, water is a state, as you have already pointed out, that water is a state subject, and India is a federal nation with unitary in spirit, but actually federal in working. So to have a one size fit all and to have one solution, like you said, that only a re-engineering fit, if we don't have the communities taking it up, like water pricing has been such an issue because it's for you to you being a small country to set up rated regulatory authority and to almost make people realize that you have to save water, you have to pay water. One difference in India, which I can historically say, is that Israel, in some sense, was a new nation, though it was a historical nation, but it was a new nation. And Israelis, I've seen, they are so committed and passionate about the identity of Israel that they're willing to sacrifice everything. In India, we have had a riverine culture. We have had a culture of, being with water, not thinking of it as a scarce resource. I remember when I was a kid, I used to just brush my teeth and leave the tap water open. It was only when my kid, grew up and she said, Mom, you're supposed to close the tap water. So I realized that, okay, water is scarce. So I said, uh, e- even after, in my 30s, I didn't realize that water was actually scarce. And when I've joined this ministry in September, I've realized that oh, there's actually a cause for alarm if we don't wake up for the future of the planet. But in India, as you said, that we have to adopt solutions which are compatible not only with technology but also with our tradition. Like, it took India a long time to realize that you have to pay for your electricity. I remember when we were kids, all the meters used to be, we were children. There was this meter man who used to come, he used to fix the meter, and we just paid the same amount. And this was happening everywhere. So when, it started getting metered and bills started coming, like I now receive 17,000 for my electricity, I now know that I have to, save, I switch off the lights. So it takes time. I mean, a tradition which is different from Israel and India is a very, very open nation, and we are coming to terms with a lot of new things. And I think we have done magnificent work sporadically in all sectors, including water. Like I was just looking at some of the panchayat level ones. I mean, I cannot imagine. I had gone to lecture them on something, and what I got back, I cannot imagine the level of wisdom they have. And we are opening. We have a committee. I don't know if you're aware, called the Rajiv Ranjan Mishra Committee, which is documenting all the historical water monuments, which we are going to release as a portal called Jal Itihas or Jal History, tentatively called that, and which will be geotagged, and it will document all the first for the 75 years, because we are celebrating the 75 years of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So for 75 water bodies which we are selecting, and you will be amazed at the response that we've got. We have such traditional water bodies that, even if we start using that instead of adopting just technology which is new, uh, I mean, we have a wealth of information. So we, under the National Water Mission, we are also trying to harness the wealth of information that we have. Like I was looking at the Rajsamand Lake, and I was even looking at the Sip Sagar lakes, if you've been to Assam. Or all the lakes are the natural water, all the bowlies, the step wells. We're trying to first document, create a love for those monuments, a pride in the history of water, a pride in the history of river. We all grew up, we call Ganga Ma, like mother. Brahmaputra is considered the father. So we are a civilization which has grown up with love for water. But suddenly, because of all the influences that has come with globalization and consumerism, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but it has led to a certain disdain for anything which is traditional. So I think we have to manage also leveraging our traditional mechanisms and also adopting all that is new and wonderful that Israel is offering or the other, best practices across the world will offer. But the way you summarize the whole thing without being very preachy, because we in India don't like people who preach. So the way you put across your views really is really nice, and hope to take it forward.
So, thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words. I just want to maybe conclude, and the last remark is two things. So first, India is a very special country. India is actually a proud nation. And in the last year, I worked with many people in the different sectors, in the governmental agency, the private sector, and I found a very high quality, good people and good knowledge. And I don't think there is any challenge that India cannot meet. And if I look, what's happening here in the banking system, in the energy system, India is very advanced. IT industry, and I do believe this country have both the knowledge and the capacity to find the right solution for India and to develop the models that are right for India. That will be different from the Israeli model. That will be models that address the current issue, the social and the economical constraint of this country. But I think what is needed is a very bold and straightforward approach, not to be afraid to make changes, not to be afraid to take some risk in order to change public and change the system in the ways that it could be benefit. And I do believe that in Israel and the other company can be part of this transition. And I'm looking forward to work with all of you. And last and not least, I want to wish for you and for all the audience happy Diwali and namaskar, and thank you for hosting me today. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much. Actually, we have a very committed team. We have a very committed Prime Minister. Directions is from above. We have a very committed and knowledgeable ministers. Our minister says that he's a farmer. So, if he sees us talking shop, then he can completely stop us and say, this is not practical in the ground. So, and we have a very committed secretary, special secretary. You must have already met the Rain Man, Ashok Kumar sir, who was also my predecessor, and Vikashil, who is JJM. So we are all trying to now we have been working, and we are trying to work in an integrated manner. Thank you, Anupama, for offering me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you all those who have listened to us patiently, and happy Diwali also. Bye.
So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Leon, and thank you, lovely participants. As I said, 41st Water Talk, and I still see same people and a lot of new ones joining us every time we do these water talks. And wish you a happy festivities with a promise that we'll see you again on the third Friday of November sooner. Thank you so much. Please take care.
Namaskar. Thank you.